So Lucas Tracy came out with his weekly GOAT list, and that's to be expected. It was a bad list, but what else can we expect when it comes to Lucas making GOAT lists and ranking greatness? I mean, he's one of the worst. Scratch that. Lucas Tracy is the worst content creator when it comes to ranking all-time greats. There's no consistency. Fighters just jump up for no reason at all. Lucas made a GOAT list 9 months ago, and the GOAT list that he made before that video, Volkanovski was, I think, either at number 5 or number 4, with Demetrius Johnson being over him. And the only thing that changed on either one of their resumes was Volk getting knocked out twice, and somehow he jumped DJ. And DJ was at number 4 9 months ago. Nothing changed on his resume. Nothing changed on a lot of the other guys who were behind him. But the GOAT list before the one he just dropped, DJ was at 13. This last video, DJ somehow jumped up to number 11. So his videos are essentially how he feels at the moment. No consistency at all. Fighters can move up and down like the stock market. Guys can move up with 2 losses, losing twice in a row. Guys can move down. Nothing could change at all on either resume, and guys can shift. So that's why I say the worst when it comes to creating GOAT lists. No consistency. The criteria is resume and nothing else. He'll bring up all these other bullshit like, did you lose in your prime and championship wins, but they aren't everything, which all that means is we just strip away accomplishments and we only rank resumes. That's what championships aren't everything mean when it comes to him and people like him. Now, let me say this right off the bat, because I know the first shit I'm gonna hear is, bro, you just a hater. Really can't say that with me. If you recognize my name, you would know I was one of the most consistent supporters on the channel. Supported not only the streams, but bought the cookbook, the 60-day shred, which actually helped me out a lot, got me into shape. Learned a lot when it came to fitness from him. So I fuck with Lucas. I love the channel. I think he is the best content creator when it comes to entertainment, and he does know about MMA. Because I know a lot of people would just call him a casual and all that. I'm not gonna go that far. He knows about the sport. I just think since he haven't been streaming, he been losing his mind, honestly, because when we would have these conversations in the chat, you would have people like myself and others who would kind of push back. But now that he don't have that pushback, his mind has just been allowed to run wild, and now he coming out with these weekly GOAT lists. Lucas done lost his mind. I'm telling y'all, he going crazy. The next GOAT list, all the old heads will just be off. John Jones will be off the list. George St. Pierre will be off the list. Everybody gonna be off the list. It's because these newer Johnny-come-lately fans, they have no respect for the old heads, and it's just the only quality wins are the guys that I know and I recognize the name. Those are the only quality wins. Old heads can't have quality wins if I don't recognize the name. So that's what it is. Now, if I was to talk about everything that I hated about that video, this video would be about 4 or 5 hours long. Like, it's that bad. But I don't have that kind of time, and I know y'all don't have that kind of time. So I'm gonna give my 5 takeaways that irked me more than the other 1,000 reasons why that video was just ridiculous and should be deleted. Lucas should be embarrassed with himself. Number 5, Islam needing 1 win to pass GSP, ridiculous. Number 4, the Daniel Cormier disrespect, again, ridiculous. 3, the continuous overrating of Kamaru Usman. I know he gave his reasons why he had him at 10, but you got Usman over DC, DJ, Stipe. It's like, okay. Ilya at 5. Like, come on. And I think most MMA fans who saw their videos is just like, dude, what are you doing? And number 1, the Anderson Silva and DJ disrespect. And in that section, I'm gonna really, just put a bow on this whole video. And once and for all, as a niche, we have to figure out, like, what is greatness? We really have to give that definition, because it seemed like these videos should be titled Top 15 Resumes of All Time. Because if we're talking about greatness, it's other stuff that has to play a fact in order to truly rank greatness, because every other respectable sport does this except for the fans in this sport. And I can't even really say that. It's really these newer fans, the guys like Lucas Tracy. And I know, me saying that is gonna sound like a diss, but in that video he was talking about, the nostalgia bias, which it's not nostalgia bias. It's fans, like myself, We just following the same formula that every other fan base does. But it's only you guys who have this, I like to call it, are we done with the 90s syndrome, where it's just like, dude, screw the old heads. If I don't remember these guys, to hell with them. I'm only giving respect to the guys that I see. And I don't like it, but that's just my opinion. So let's get to number 5. Islam needing 1 win to pass GSP. Now I'm gonna say this right off the bat. Islam is on his way to being the greatest fighter of all time. With his resume, his quality of wins that he have already, he on his way to surpassing George and John. And do I believe he has to pass GSP when it comes to title wins to surpass him as the 2nd greatest fighter or the GOAT? No, I don't. I don't even think he got to match him in championship wins to surpass him. But looking at it right now, Islam got 5 title wins. George St. Pierre has 13. And it's not like George got just a bunch of title wins and no quality at all. George has a lot of really good quality. Most of his title wins were against guys with really good streaks. Now, I always make the case that a lot of those guys fell off. But when you look at guys like Jake Shields was a great win, who went on to beat Damian Maia and Tyron Woodley. Carlos Condit was a decent win. Johnny Hendricks was a decent win, who went on to become the champion. Matt Hughes, at the time when George beat him, was like a top 10 fighter of all time. You didn't have fans going crazy when he beat Matt Hughes and BJ Penn, and he got 2 wins over both of those all-time great fighters. You didn't have fans going crazy and saying, oh my God, George St. Pierre is the greatest fighter of all time. No, because fans at that time understood to surpass the greats, you had to like legitimately surpass them in terms of greatness. And it wasn't just quality, even though George St. Pierre, especially at that time, had the greatest quality of wins we had ever seen. John Fitch was on like a 10 or 11 fight win streak, and then after George St. Pierre straight dominated him, washed him, John Fitch went on to win like 5 more fights. BJ Penn went on to become a champion after George beat him the first time, and was a champion, if I'm not mistaken, was a champion when George St. Pierre beat him the second time. And even his run to the title, after losing to Matt Hughes, George St. Pierre had to fight Karo Parisian, who, if you're not a hardcore fan, Karo Parisian at the time was a great win, was a high-ranking welterweight at that time. And I think he fought him in his UFC debut. And Karo Parisian got decent wins. He beat Nick Diaz. George St. Pierre had to fight Frank Trigg. He had to fight Sean Sherk. He had to fight BJ Penn. And these all wins before even getting a title. So George St. Pierre has an insane amount of quality and an insane amount of quantity. 13 title wins. But because you have these newer fans like Lucas Tracy, and like I said, the only quality wins to these guys are the wins today. The only good wins are guys who they beaten today. And I get it, Charles Oliveira, that's a great win. Volkanovski, the first win was a great win. But we can't ignore that the second fight was on short notice. And now Renato Moicano, like, that's a decent win, but like, come on. It's almost like for one win for Islam Makhachev or a fighter today is equal to like 4 wins from yesteryear, which is insane. It's like, it could be 1.5, but come on, bro. Like, 6 title wins, and he passed George St. Pierre, who has really good quality and quantity. He can have less than half of George St. Pierre's legacy, and we can just put him at number 2. Like, come on, man. And I'm sorry. Like I said, if you just disqualify people that pop for steroids, George St. Pierre is easily the greatest fighter of all time, and it's gonna take more than 6 title wins to pass that dude. I'm sorry. Like, you gotta come with like 8 or 9. And I know it's like, oh, this just crazy, but in my opinion, it's like, y'all know these guys aren't as great as the fighters of yesteryear. It's like, you gotta know that. Because what y'all will say is, oh, bro, you can't expect them to get all those wins. The skill level is way better than it was back then. Dude, Anderson Silva, George St. Pierre, DJ John, like, those guys didn't have some fucking ancient training that didn't nobody else have access to. Those 4 guys was visited by some fucking aliens, and they were given some special training that nobody else had access to, and then they came back down and started kicking ass. Like, no. They had access to the same kind of training, but they far surpassed their contemporaries. That's greatness. But y'all know these guys today, they not doing this. So it's like, oh, we can't judge them how we judged those guys back in the day. We gotta grade them on the curve and give them extra credit because the sport is just so evolved. It's like, dude, how much is it really evolved? Dustin Poirier is still a top 5 lightweight. This dude been fighting since George St. Pierre was the fucking champion. Charles Oliveira, like these divisions are littered with guys who were fighting in their time. Like, I'm not arguing that the game hasn't evolved, but it's like y'all talking like everybody is Islam Makhachev. Like, dude, stop it. George St. Pierre, Islam Makhachev ain't surpassing George St. Pierre with one more title win. Like, get the fuck out of here with that. Now moving on to my 4th point, the DC disrespect. I'm gonna go out on a limb right now and say it. DC is the most underrated fighter in UFC history. Now I know who've seen my videos is gonna say, dude, you just saying this to try to elevate John Jones' resume, and it's a little bit of that, I ain't gonna lie. But you can't argue with the results either. When Lucas was, consistently streaming, when he talked about Jose Aldo, he would say the reason why he had Jose Aldo ranked so high is because of the success that he had in another division. Daniel Cormier had a Hall of Fame career in a whole separate division. Before coming down to light heavyweight, Daniel Cormier was like 14-0 at heavyweight, with wins over Frank Mir, a former champion. I know he's a guy that's an old name, so he gonna instantly get disrespect. Frank Mir had decent wins, and again, he was a former champion. Had a win over Bigfoot Silva. Again, another guy that's gonna just get disrespect. Oh, that's a shit win. Bigfoot Silva only beat Andrei Arlovsky, Fedor Emelianenko, Travis Brown, roided up Alistair Overeem. I mean, those are quality wins on anybody's resume. And DC, I don't even think Bigfoot Silva landed a punch in that fight. DC rinsed them in the first round and was the Strikeforce heavyweight champion. Came over to the UFC, was undefeated with decent wins. Roy Nelson was another guy, but I probably shouldn't even brought him up because somebody laughing right now. Even though he got good wins his damn self. Moved down to light heavyweight, beat Dan Henderson, went undefeated, fought John Jones, lost. He's fighting John Jones. John Jones made a bunch of mistakes, got suspended. Daniel Cormier proved his greatness. While John Jones was away, he beat Alexander Gustafsson, the guy who a lot of people believe beat John Jones. Gustafsson, who beat Jan Blachowicz, beat Glover Teixeira, beat a lot of really good guys, and DC beat Anthony Rumble Johnson, a dude that came up from the welterweight division. You talk about lighter man skill. This dude came from the welterweight division as a dominant, crazy striker, moved up to the light heavyweight division with fucking look like Francis Ngannou type of power with welterweight striking skill. Anthony Rumble Johnson beat Phil Davis. And again, another guy that a lot of you niggas do not know because y'all wasn't watching during that time. Phil Davis was the light heavyweight version of Mateus Gamrot, who got wins over guys like Lyoto Machida, Glover Teixeira. Bet you didn't know that, but y'all don't know what the fuck y'all talking about. So of course you gonna dismiss a name like Phil Davis and scoff at the name, but that's a really good name. A great wrestler that couldn't do anything with Rumble. Rumble shucked him off and beat the fuck out of him for 3 rounds. 30-27, dominated him. Beat Gustafsson, beat Ryan Bader. Ryan Bader, who was that? He was ranked number 5 at the time, had won like 13 of his last 14 or 15 fights, and went to another organization that was the double champ for like 10 fucking years. But the theme of this fucking video, y'all don't recognize the name. It's not a name that gets a lot of respect, so you just gonna brush it off like it don't matter. That was a great fucking win. And he knocked out Glover Teixeira in record-breaking time. Anthony Rumble Johnson is one of the greatest fighters to never win a championship, and one of the most dangerous fighters of all time. DC beat him twice. The only person that beat light heavyweight Anthony Rumble Johnson was DC. Oh yeah, and DC was a double fucking champion and beat the greatest heavyweight of all time, and he defended the fucking belt. He defended against Derrick Lewis. Derrick Lewis, who got a win over Curtis Blades and Alexander Volkov. Some pretty decent wins for Derrick Lewis, and he was on like a 5-fight KO streak. But people don't give DC their respect, and he beat Volkan Ozdemir. DC has a really good resume, and he has the accomplishments. He was a double champ. Has a Hall of Fame legacy in 2 separate divisions. How the fuck is he 13? How is Usman over DC? We gonna get to Usman. We gonna get to him. How is Max Holloway over DC? This whole championships aren't everything. The reason why Lucas and other guys say this shit is because, again, you strip away accomplishments. You barely mentioned DC as being a double champ. And how the fuck is being a double champ not counted in the GOAT conversation? In no other sport do we do this. That type of accomplishment that only a handful of fighters have ever accomplished in a career. DC is one of those guys, and he defended the belt in both weight classes, and that's not considered at all. You could put Max Holloway over him, no problem. You could put Khabib over him, no problem. He don't have a championship in 2 separate divisions. He don't have a win against an all-time great like Stipe, but no consideration at all. Yep, he was a double champ, has a great resume, but who cares? But how the fuck do you look at DC's resume and his career and not see a top, in my opinion, no lower than 7? DC is no lower than 7 on that list, on any GOAT list. Truly look at it, DC is one of the greatest fighters of all time, and like I said, in my opinion, he's the most underrated fighter of all time. I don't think he was on the Weasel top 15 GOAT list. It's like, stop the DC disrespect. This dude has an insane, underrated resume and an underrated legacy. But yeah, moving on to number 4, the continuous overrating of Kamaru Usman. And I'm not even gonna stay here too long, but let's talk about Usman and that damn resume of his. Kamaru Usman's championship reign is a Gilbert Burns win that isn't really aging that well. 2 Colby Covington wins. Again, they not aged that. Those 2 wins aren't aging well. And 2 Jorge Masvidal wins that was never fucking good. Jorge Masvidal caught lightning in a fucking bottle, did okay, made a lot of money, but this dude was never elite. It's like people completely forgot that he got fucking pieced up in 30-27 against Wonder Boy right before going on that little fluky ass run. But that's essentially Usman's championship reign. Now, am I saying Usman not great? No, we saw, his performance against Hamzat, and we saw what Hamzat did to Robert Whittaker. So I'm not saying that he's not a great fighter, but if we talking about resumes and legacies and what guys have accomplished, I'm sorry, Usman is not top 10. He beat Leon Edwards. There was a young, inexperienced Leon Edwards. We saw what happened when Leon leveled up. He beat him twice. And he beat a weight drained Sean Strickland. You can't ignore those factors when talking about GOAT lists and putting him over fucking DC. And in my opinion, like, that's what you're doing. You ignoring all those factors. You ignoring this was a young, inexperienced Leon. This was a weight drain, version of Sean Strickland. This wasn't middleweight Sean Strickland that he beat. And his title reign wasn't really that great. It was decent. It was all right, but it wasn't all that. If we looking at the resume and we looking at how it has aged, it has not aged well. 2 wins over Covington does not look that great right now. Like I said, 2 wins over Masvidal was never great. I don't even know why he rematched Masvidal. He should have been trying to fight Bilal before Bilal leveled up like he did. And if he had that win on his resume, now we talking top 10. But he didn't. He wanted to get some more money from Jorge Masvidal. And okay, you got some more money, but your resume looks shitty as hell because you got that fucking bomb on your shit twice. So yeah, I think Usman is hella overrated. He not over Jose Aldo. He not over DC. I think we can all agree on that. He not over Stipe. There's a lot of guys that Usman just not over. I'm sorry. Like, he a great fighter. I believe that. And I believe if you drop a prime Usman in this division, I think he beats the majority of those guys. I can see him beating Bilal. I can see him beating Shavkat, Ian Gary. I can see him beating a lot of those guys. I can see prime Usman beating Leon. But if we looking at what is, I'm sorry, Usman is not a top 10 fighter of all time. So yeah, moving on to number 2, Ilya in the fucking top 10. Like I said, Lucas obviously has the "are we done with the 90 syndrome?" But one of his worst illnesses, I feel like, is prisoner of the fucking moment syndrome. Because how on God's green earth can you have Ilya Topuria in the top 5, let alone the top 10, let alone the top 15? In the top fucking 5, like, come on, like, even the biggest Lucas Tracy supporters gotta agree with me on this. Like, how can you realistically put this dude in the top 5 with 1 Max Holloway win and 1 Alexander win? Great wins. I have Volkanovski in my top 5. A win over Volkanovski is a great win. A win over Max Holloway is a great win. KO Max Holloway, the first person to do that. So I'm not saying that Ilya isn't great. And I'm not saying that with those 2 wins, he not on his way, because he is. When you have quality wins like that, in my opinion, at that point, you don't have to do as much as a guy who don't have those wins. So let's say Ilya Topuria got those 2 wins and 5 okay wins, and you compare him against a guy that has 10 okay wins, but he don't have those 2 great wins. I think Ilya Topuria will have a greater resume and a greater legacy with those 2 really great wins. But with those 2 wins alone and a Josh Emmett win, and after that, much or nothing, how could you realistically put him in the top 5? Somebody got to explain that to me. How the fuck is Ilya Topuria in the top 5 already? That's why I say this dude is the prisoner of the moment. And it's like, okay, what if Ilya Topuria was to lose against Diego Lopez? Now is he still a top 5 fighter? Obviously, Lucas is gonna say no, he's not. But that's my point. You can't just start dropping guys out of the GOAT list. But it's your GOAT list. You're gonna do whatever you want to do. But to the fan base, it's like, dude, no, like, you can't do that. This dude has so much more to accomplish before we start to talk about him over guys with fucking 13 title wins. I don't know, man. And that's exactly why I said, because I know Lucas would be like, oh, well, no, it's not. The resume isn't 99%. How the fuck is resume not 99% when you got Ilya Topuria in the top 5? Because he beat Max Holloway and Volt. Literally no quantity at all. No records broken, no longevity, title wins. He don't have the legacy. But he already in the top 5 over guys with, like I said, double-digit title wins. But it's not about just resume. It's more than just a resume. Resume is the most important, but it's not just a resume. But Ilya Topuria in the top 5 with 2 title wins against 2 really great fighters. But it's not just resume. Resume isn't 99%. Bullshit. But moving on to number 1, the end of my rant, the Anderson Silva and Demetrius Johnson disrespect. I'm gonna just really talk about Anderson and just, like I said, put a bow on this whole conversation about greatness and, you know, title wins. These guys, all-time greats, and the things that they accomplished, and why I feel like title wins, while it isn't everything, I do believe it's significant. But starting out with Anderson Silva. So Anderson Silva, you know, most new fans would look at his resume, and when when guys like Lucas talk about Anderson, they basically bring up like 3 names: Travis Lutter, Patrick Cote, and I don't know, like a Yushin Okami. They'll see those 3 guys on his resume and be like, what the fuck? This dude was fighting cans. Like, his resume is horrible, trash. It's not just about the resume. Again, resume is significant, and I think it is the most important criteria in ranking GOATs. But again, that's not the end all be all. Now, am I saying that somebody has to win 13 title wins like Anderson in order to surpass him? No, I'm not saying it. Does somebody have to match him? No. Does somebody have to get 10? In my opinion, no, because his resume is that lackluster. But let's talk about Anderson's legacy. Anderson Silva has 13 title wins. Out of those 13 title wins, he has, 11 finishes? And of the 2 fights that went to decision, he 50-45 them. Like, Anderson Silva has one of the greatest peaks in MMA history, and he has decent wins on his resume. Vitor Belfort is a good win. Is it an all-time great win? No. Is it a Volkanovski win? Hell no. But it's a really good win. In my opinion, it's better than a Justin Gaethje win. It's better than a fucking Yair Rodriguez win. Anderson Silva also has Dan Henderson on his resume. That's a really good win. And in my opinion, that's a great win. Who else? Who else Anderson got? Rich Franklin. That's a good win. Rich Franklin was a champion, a defending champion. Again, y'all just don't recognize the name. So y'all gonna say y'all Rich Franklin, he was nothing. He was nobody. Rich Franklin was a decent fighter at that time. Forrest Griffin. When people hear Forrest Griffin name, they just, oh, this dude, he wasn't all that. Forrest Griffin has wins over Shogun Hood and Quinn Rampage Jackson. And after he lost the belt to Rashad Evans, he fought Anderson Silva. That'll be the equivalent of DDP just randomly moving up to the light heavyweight division and beating Jamal Hill. Nobody would be like, oh, that's nothing. That's not a great win. It wouldn't be a great win, but it'll be a good win. But with Anderson Silva, it's like, no, it's not a great win. It's nothing. It's just beating another can. A former champion being another fucking can in a higher weight class. At the time when Anderson Silva beat Dan Henderson, he had just fought for the light heavyweight title against Quinn Rampage Jackson in a fight that he arguably won. And like I said, when he beat Forrest Griffin had just lost the title. It's an argument that Anderson Silva was the best light heavyweight and middleweight at that time. Like, he was that great. But he never fought for the light heavyweight title. And, you know, people can say, well, he didn't do it, so what does that matter? But I'm just laying it out like how great this dude was at that time. All these years that Anderson Silva been far removed from his prime, and yet his 16-fight unbeaten streak still holds strong. And you will have people that say, oh, well, he fought for the title soon as he got into the UFC. That still don't change the fact that he has a 16-fight unbeaten streak. And in that 15-fight unbeaten streak, this dude was a champion. The vast majority of those fights was championship fights. Oh yeah, and he got a win over prime Damian Maia. Again, that's a decent win. Nate Marquardt, like, that's a decent win. Like, he got decent wins on his resume. People talk like his resume is Travis Lutter, just all the way down the line. Like, he just beat all Travis Lutter type fighters. And yes, to a degree, you can hold it against him that he didn't fight other all-time greats. We didn't get to see him against other all-time greats. But if you take everything else into account, records that he holds, the 16-fight unbeaten streak, at the time he held the record for the most consecutive title wins, the fact that he finished 11 of those 13 title fights, and success in another division, if you take all of that into account, in my opinion, Anderson Silva is the top 5 fighter of all time. It's not just about the resume. And the reason why I put a lot of stock in championship wins is because in every other sport, championships are everything. Only in MMA do we have some of the biggest fucking content creators or the biggest influencers in this niche saying that championships aren't everything. In the NBA titles are everything. Obviously, other stuff is taken into account. Scoring titles, defensive players of the year, like all that other stuff. Yes, that plays a factor, but at the end of the day, championships are everything. In the NFL, championships are everything. It's a reason why Tom Brady is considered the GOAT, and it's not even a conversation. Super Bowls are everything in this sport. But in MMA, again, the biggest influences in this shit that will tell you, look, championships aren't everything. You can have a guy like Anderson Silva have 13 fucking title wins, and a guy like Ilya have 2, and we're gonna put Ilya over him because championships aren't everything. But to finish this off, greatness to me, and I kind of spoiled it in the George St. Pierre section. The reason why, to me, the big 4 in MMA, John Jones, Anderson Silva, DJ, George, the reason why I hold those guys in high regard is because, in my opinion, like, they just greater than the guys today. Are the guys today better, more skilled than the fighters of yesteryear? Yes, except for probably John Jones. John Jones is still a champion today, and that's why he the GOAT. Outside of him, most of the guys today are better than those guys. But with that being said, big 4 in MMA, those guys are just greater. They set themselves so far apart from the competition that guys today, to me, it seemed like they just can't do. For newer fans to say, we can't expect these guys to get 10, 11, 12 title wins. Like, the game is just too caught up. Why? Why can't they do it? Are they greater? Because Lucas Tracy got Ilia Topuria over Anderson Silva. Well, I'm guessing this dude is going to sit up and get 9 or 10 title wins. Why can't these guys do it if they greater than the guys of the past? It's just an honest question. Like, if they so great, why can't they do what those older guys did? If they so much better, why can't they do it? It's because they aren't as great. Until they prove that they greater, stop saying the greatest of all time. Just say the best of all time. Period. Just say the top 15 best fighters of all time. Don't say great, because they not greater than John Jones, George St. Pierre, Demetrius Johnson, or Anderson Silva. Because like I said, those 4 guys, they weren't given some training that other guys in that era didn't have access to. Like, they all had access to the same trainers, the same nutrition, except for maybe Anderson and John. they had some more shit, but as far as like skill set, they had the same training and they set the bar extremely high. In no other sport do we then turn around and set the bar so low for the next generation of fighters. Only in this sport do we do that. And my whole point in making this video is like, where do we stop? Because if Ilia Topuria can be in the top 5, because they're just insane. Let's just be somewhat realistic, even though this is not really realistic. But let's just say most fans want to put Ilia in the top 10. Automatically put him in the top 10 of all time based on those 2 wins. Where does it stop? Can a guy become the GOAT with 2 wins? You know what I'm saying? Like, where does it stop? When do we have like a criteria, like a true definitive criteria where it's like, you know, fighters have to pass a certain threshold before they in their GOAT conversation? Because if a dude can be the GOAT with or in the top 5 with 2 title wins, or in the top 10 with 2 fighter wins, again, can a guy be the GOAT with 2 title wins? I don't understand what's going on. Like, Islam Makhachev is on his way to being the 2nd greatest fighter of all time, according to Lucas Tracy, with 6 title wins. So can a guy be the GOAT with 6 title wins? And as the sport evolves more and more and more, does the barrier to entry get smaller and smaller? Because at some point it's like, can a guy become the GOAT with 1 win? It's like, where does this stop? But yeah, I don't know. That's my rant, and it's annoying because it's not just him. Because Lucas, he influencing a next generation of fans gonna have these stupid ass opinions of those old GOATs and look at him like, dude, these guys was bums, except for George. I mean, he kind of like the only one that kind of gets respect from most casual fans, except for Lucas, because he about to put Islam over him. But he like the only one that kind of get respect. The rest, the other 3, John, Anderson, and DJ, they just getting shitted on left and right. But yeah, that's the video. That's my rant. It's just, I don't know. This dude need to start back streaming, cause ain't no telling what the next GO video gonna look like. Like I said, we can only be lucky if George St. Pierre even make the list. Because all Volkanovski got to do is fucking sneeze, and this dude gonna be the 2nd greatest fighter of all time. If Max Holloway was to go on to get 3 more wins, like, cause that's how he do it. If another fighter that Volk beat, or another, definitely with Volk, it's like that win goes to Volk. So Max Holloway beating Justin Gaethje, like that win go to Volk. Volk beat Justin Gaethje too. Like, yeah, but I'm out. Damn.